So, Priest card review. Let's get started on that. Alright. To start it off, we have a 0-drop Circle of Healing. As I said, costs 0 mana. Restore 4 health to all minions, both yours and your opponent's. It can be useful. I mean, there are cards in the Priest deck it combos well with. We'll touch on those. Yeah, not a great card, not a bad card. It's got its situational uses, and you typically only want to use it if you're running it in your deck to combo with 2 other cards in the deck, and I'll show you which 2 those are when we get to them. Next up, 0 mana Silence. Silence is a minion. It's not technically terrible, but there are creatures that have battle cries of silencing minions, and they're just, it's better to use those instead of silence. So, yeah, it's a bit of a dead card. Yep, first rule of spells: if you can accomplish the exact same effect using a creature, use the creature. Next up, Holy Smite, 1 mana spell, deals 2 damage. That's a pretty good damage to mana cost ratio, and on top of that it's cheap, so yeah, it's just good for clearing out cards in the early game, and if you guys have been watching me play at all, you've seen how well it combos with Wild Pyromancer. And I guess since I've mentioned it, now I have to show you it. Oh, there it is. Wild Pyromancer 2-drop 3/2. After you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to all minions. You know, combo that with a Smite, it basically turns into a swipe. So, pretty good combo. Next up, Inner Fire, costs 1 mana. Change a minion's attack to be equal to its health. This has potential. You can combo it with cards like Twilight Drake and Ysera, and just other cards that have really high health, to get really powerful creatures. That being said, it, requires that you have those creatures, and that they have high health, when you're going to use this. They can't be damaged down to a lower health. It is based on their current health, not their max health. So, not a terrible card. It's not run very often, though, because, you can't always rely on having creatures whose health is just always insane. And when you're using this card, you want to use it on a creature that's got at least like 6 health or more. So, yeah, it's hard to get those kind of creatures, and just always have them in decks. Next up, Mind Vision, costs 1 mana. Put a copy of a random card in your opponent's hand into your hand. It's not terrible. That being said, there's another Priest card which is just better than this and does a similar thing. Thoughtsteal. We'll touch on it. But yeah, it's not a bad card, but it's always, literally always a 1-for-1. So, whereas Thoughtsteal's a 2-for-1 every time. So, it is noteworthy it says copy. You don't just take it from their hand. That'd be a lot more powerful if it did. Next up, Power Word Shield, costs 1 mana. Give a minion +2 health and draw a card. Extremely good card here. One, because it's a really, really cheap way of giving a minion 2 more health. So, for half the cost of your hero power to just heal someone, you get to heal a creature for half the cost. And on top of that, you draw a card. So, absolutely amazing card. Next up, Northshire Cleric. It is a 1 mana, 1/3 minion. Whenever a minion is healed, draw a card. Yes, this does mean your opponent's minions too, so sometimes you have to be careful of that. This is one of the 2 cards that combos really well with Circle of Healing. Let's say you injure your whole board and you've got, the standard 3 creatures on it. You use Circle of Healing, boom, you draw 3 cards because you just healed 3 minions. So, that's pretty good for, a 0 mana Circle of Healing. Heal all your minions up to full, basically, and draw 3 cards. I would do that every time. So, yep, Circle of Healing combos really well with Cleric. Next up, Divine Spirit, costs 2 mana, double a minion's health. Kinda like Inner Fire. It relies on creatures that already have high health. problem with this one is it doesn't boost their attack at all, it just makes a minion with an insanely high amount of health. And most decks have a way to deal with high health minions anyway. Like, there are just cards that allow you to answer minions like that. For druids, there's naturalized hunters, hunter's mark, mages, polymorph, paladins, equality. For priests, depending on the creature's attack, you can do Shadow Word Pain or Shadow Word Death. Yeah, just almost every deck has a way to answer that. So, yeah, Divine Spirit's just not the best card. It can combo with Inner Fire, but then you're trying to set up a 3-card combo, and the likelihood of having it is extremely low, so it's just not... it's not worth it. There are way better cards to put in your deck than Divine Spirit. Next up, Mind Blast. Spend 2 mana, deal 5 damage to the enemy hero. That can be good. I mean, it's got a really nice damage to mana cost ratio. Problem is, it's literally only to the enemy hero, and you don't always need to just be flinging spells at the opponent's face. Priest isn't a class that, you know, does a ton of damage to the opponent's face and then can use this as a, like, finisher card. So, running a lot of these in a deck isn't always the best idea. Most decks run one, because it's still really valuable as a kind of finisher card. You know, your opponent's starting to get low on health, and you just do a bit of damage and Mind Blast him. Maybe even combo with another priest card that does 5 damage. I'll get to it later. But, yeah, typically you don't want to run 2 in a deck. 1 is enough to have as a finisher, usually. Next up, Shadow Word Pain. Spend 2 mana, destroy a minion with 3 or less attack. Technically it's not a terrible card, but it's not a great card either. There are a select few minions that you would want to use this on to get good value, and yeah, typically you'll just be using this to take out really small minions, so not great. Not bad, but not great. Yeah, that's about all there is to say about that. Next up, Lightwell. 2 mana creature. It is a 0/5. At the start of your turn, restore 3 health to a damaged friendly character. It doesn't seem bad, but it really kind of is. I mean, it can't attack or do anything. You're basically just playing a card that's going to do some healing for you. Not that great. Yeah. Not that great. Next up, Shadow Word Death. Costs 3 mana. Destroy a minion with an attack of 5 or more. Sorry. Absolutely great card. One of Priest's best removal spells, if not its singularly best removal spell. You can use this to just obliterate really, really powerful creatures. And it only costs 3 mana. So, I mean, it's like your opponent could play a really powerful creature, right? Usually cost about 6 or 7 mana or more. You play Shadow Word Death for easily half the cost and then have mana left over to play, you know, a creature of your own or basically whatever you want to play. So, yeah. Great card. Next up, Thought Steal. Costs 3 mana, copy 2 cards from your opponent's deck and put them into your hand. Yes, these cards do come from the deck. They never come directly from your opponent's hand. That does not happen. Absolutely great card, though. A lot of decks these days, a lot of decks these days don't typically run answers to their own cards. They try to build themselves around answering other decks. So, Thought Steal is a great way to just take an opponent's own cards and use them against him. It's basically take your opponent's best card and another card. And that's great. That's an absolutely great card. Next up, Shadow Form. Costs 3 mana, your hero power becomes deal 2 damage. If already in shadow form, 3 damage. So it can be useful. I mean, having a hero power that spend 2 mana, deal 2 damage, free targeting, that would easily be the strongest hero power in the game. But you're spending 3 mana and a turn, basically, to convert your hero power into something that doesn't heal, and healing is one of Priest's biggest assets. Because, I mean, you can keep your minions alive through trades that normally, you know, other decks wouldn't be able to. Now you're just relying on your hero power to kind of blast things and hope you don't have to trade minions. So, I don't really like Shadow Form. I've seen decks that kind of combo with Shadow Form. They actually do run a lot of Mind Blasts, a lot of Shadow Forms, and they just kind of try to Zerg rush you down. I'm not a fan of that, though, and I feel like those decks are still combo reliant, so yeah, not a terrible card, but I don't really like it, so that's just my personal opinion. Next up, we have Mass Dispel. Costs 4 mana, silence all enemy minions, draw a card. There is literally one scenario in which this is good, and you almost never run into it anymore. If you are against Murlocs, this is beautiful. Murlocs run on the concept of buffing each other just to the point of, like, absurdity. You silence them all and suddenly they're all just little dinky Murlocs again. Nobody runs Murloc anymore, though, because we have the Zoo deck. Thanks, Reynad. So, Mass Dispel, bad card. I am perfectly comfortable saying that. Next up, Shadow Madness. Costs 4 mana, gain control of an enemy minion with 3 or less attack until the end of turn. They don't tell you this, but the minion that you take control of does have charge for that turn, so you can attack with it. It's not like you just kind of move it out of the way. Because of that, Shadow Madness can be very good. One of the best ways to use Shadow Madness that I've seen is if you can take a Harvest Golem from your opponent, and I will show you guys Harvest Golem, and then get it killed. That, as well as killing a creature with it, that's great. Harvest Golem is a 3 mana 2/3. Its Death Rattle is to summon a 2/1 damaged Golem. So if you can take a Harvest Golem, use it to kill one of his creatures, preferably like a 3/2 or something like that, and then, of course, because of that, kill the Harvest Golem, you actually get to keep the 2/1 damaged Golem. That won't return to him. On top of that, I've seen cases where people are kind of mean and they use Shadow Madness, and then where'd it go? Youthful Brewmaster, 2 mana 3/2, Battlecry, return a friendly minion from the battlefield to your hand. You can steal a card from your opponent with Shadow Madness, and then use Youthful Brewmaster to return it to your own hand, so you get to just keep it, period. So that's another good combo with Shadow Madness. But I still am not a huge fan of the card. Usually by turn 4, when you're going to be using it, your opponent's going to have a couple of minions out that have more than 3 attack. So, yeah, if it were 1 less mana, I'd probably use it a lot more, but it just feels like it comes a little bit too late to be all that effective. Still, it's got a ton of potential. It's a pretty good card. There are plenty of Priest decks that run it. It's just not my personal favorite. Next up, Alkanai Soul Priest. Costs 4 mana. 3/5. Your cards and powers that restore health now deal damage instead. This is also a reason why I don't run Shadow Form. Alkanai Soul Priest will basically make it so your hero power of healing for 2 now becomes damage for 2. Hey, what do you know? Same thing as Shadow Form. Alkanai can be absolutely amazing. This is the other card that combos with Circle of Healing. Instead of healing all minions for 4, you are now damaging all minions for 4. It's basically a 4 mana Flame Strike for both sides of the board, and that's got a lot of potential if you have nothing on your board. So, on top of that, Alkanai has 5 health, so it will survive that. Really nice bonus touch. But, yeah, Alkanai's pretty great. You gotta be careful using it, though. A lot of priests will drop Alkanai when they're behind, and when you do that, it's really hard to regain board control with a priest when you can't heal whatsoever. Since, you know, that's what priest does. It makes favorable trades using its hero power to heal minions. Now you have to damage enemy minions instead. So usually you only want to use Alkanai, either for the Circle of Healing combo, or when you're ahead. Because when you're ahead, you know, you can start healing opponent minions and making really favorable trades with your, you know, weaker minions. He's got a 5 health minion, you've got a 3 attack minion, boom, heal it down, trade. But, yeah, one thing to note is do not play this card when you are behind. It will bite you in the butt every time, and you will almost find yourself wishing you had a way to kill it. So, never play it when you're behind. Next up, Light Spawn. 4 mana, it says 0-5, that is misleading. This minion's attack is always equal to its health. This means when you play it is a 4 mana 5-5. That's really high value. The problem is, once it does take damage, you know, it starts losing health. Or, oh my god. That was the most obvious statement of my life. I meant to say, when it starts taking damage, it starts losing attack as well. So, I mean, your opponent deals 1 damage to it, boom, it's a 4-4. It just lost a whole level of being able to trade. So that's not good. Not good at all. That being said, Lightspawn does have potential. I mean, you could combo it with Divine Spirit, double its health, suddenly you've got a 10-10. So it has potential, but I mean, you know, your opponent could silence it, and suddenly it's a 0-5 again. Your opponent could deal damage to it, now it's just getting a lot weaker. It screams, I need maintenance from your hero power, and there are times when you're not always able to supply it with maintenance, and it just starts becoming useless. So, it's not run all that often, because it's a high maintenance card, and the reward you get for maintaining it is not quite worth it. It's got potential, but yeah, that's that. I actually am missing a 4 mana card. Mind Games. Cost 4 mana. Put a copy of a random minion from your opponent's deck into the battlefield. So, yeah, it does that. No, the minion you summon does not have charge. Yes, you can literally summon any minion. What really sucks is when your opponent uses Mind Games and they pull your Ragnaros onto the field on turn 4, and you sit there going, how the hell am I supposed to answer that? Shadow Word Death. No. But yeah, Mind Games has a lot of potential. On the other hand, it's not run entirely often. If you're up against like a zoo deck, the best card you're likely to steal is, you know, like a Doomguard, maybe. And it's always got the potential to steal weak minions. Like, if it steals a 1-drop or a 2-drop, that's just bad value, so it's a little too heavy on RNG for most, you know, pro-grade decks. On the other hand, if you're making a troll deck, I absolutely recommend this card. Sometimes it is absolutely hilarious what you can do with this thing. But on a competitive scene, it's just not consistent enough, so for that reason, it's not my favorite, but the troll value it has is over 9,000, so yep, good for that. Very good for that. Next up, Holy Nova. 5 mana spell, deal 2 damage to all enemies, restore 2 health to all friendly characters. This is Priest's only, you know, regular form of board clear. Also good to combo with Pyromancers. This card also combos really well with Northshire Cleric. Since you can heal your own minions, you have Northshire out, and it can draw you cards. That being said, for 5 mana, 2 damage to all enemies is not that much. Yeah, sometimes it just feels like Holy Nova's a little weak. But I can't say giving it a boost to damage would really make it balanced. I'd just make it overpowered, so yep, it's not a, you know, amazing, it's not an amazing card, it's not terrible, it's just, you know, a good priest card. And that's about it. Still run in most priest decks because in this meta, board clear is absolutely necessary, so any form of board clear you can get must be used. Simply must be. Next up, Holy Fire. Cost 6 mana, deal 5 damage, restore 5 health to your hero. It's pretty good. You know, it can be used for board clear. It can be used when you just need health. Usually with priests you want to keep your health around 20. Healing for 5, you know, there's a lot of potential healing you could do all at once with a card like Holy Fire. So, it's just really useful. I do want to point out really quickly, notice both Holy Nova and Holy Fire are restore health cards. If you play Alchemy when you are behind, and you find yourself needing to Holy Nova or Holy Fire, excuse me, suddenly all the healing that should be applied by these is turned into damage. Holy Nova will just start dealing 2 damage to the whole board with an Alchemy out there, and Holy Fire will deal 5 damage to your target and to your face instead of healing you, so that's why we don't play Alchemy from behind. You just bite yourself in the butt every time. It's a pain in the ass. Okay, next up, Cabal Shadow Priest. Costs 6 mana. It is a 4/5. That seems kind of weak for a 6-drop, right? Why not just play a Yeti, 2 mana cheaper, same stats. Battlecry. Take control of an enemy minion that has 2 or less attack. This can be really good. Just depends on the kind of deck you're against. I mean, if you're playing against Druid or a certain form of Warlock that just runs really high attack creatures, for both of those, Shadow Priest isn't all that good, because you're not liable to steal a weak minion since they don't really run weak minions. That being said, against, you know, zoo decks which just swarm you with weak minions, or, you know, decks that do run them, Cabal can be really, really good. Just like with Shadow Madness, Harvest Golem's a really good Cabal Shadow Priest target. Yeah. So, Cabal, it's got its uses. It's, I'd definitely say, an above average priest card, and I like it. Yeah. Just note that you're not always going to get to use the Battle Cry. Sometimes you are going to be forced into playing this without the Battle Cry, and don't get greedy. Yeah, if you have to play it, play it. Don't keep holding it until you're able to use the Battle Cry. Next up, Temple Enforcer. Costs 6 mana. It is a 6/6. Battle Cry. Give a friendly minion plus 3 health. At a glance, this actually seems like a great card. I mean, 6 mana for a 6/6. That's pretty good. And giving a friendly minion plus 3 health, it's basically a 6-drop 6/9. Seems amazing, right? Well, it just doesn't do enough for a priest deck, you know? Like, it won't have an immediate effect when you play it, and yeah, I don't know, there's just better cards to run for a priest deck. It's really late into the game, so if you're going to be running Cabal Shadow Priest and Holy Fire and Temple Enforcer, you're automatically just running 6 drops. That's a lot. And yeah, Cabal's just more favorable because it has a larger impact on the board immediately when you play it than Temple Enforcer does, and yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of an experience thing. Temple Enforcer just doesn't tend to have as much of an effect on the game as you want, even though he seems like an extremely high value card. Just doesn't do that well in priest decks. I still don't know how to explain it. It's just an experience thing. You're welcome to try him out. I mean, he's not a bad card. He's just not quite good enough, I guess. I don't know. Okay, anyway. Next up, Prophet Velen. He is Priest's legendary card. Woohoo. Costs 7 mana. He's a 7/7. His text, double the damage and healing of your spells and hero power. This seems really good, right up until you notice that Priest has very few cheap ways to deal damage. You got Mind Blast and Smite. That's all you can do the turn you play Velen. And that's assuming it's turn 10. So yeah, he's just, he's not bad, but there's better legendaries to run. in my opinion. And usually when you play him, you want to combo him with Mind Blasts, right? 2 mana to deal 5 damage, you drop a Velen, Mind Blast, boom, it's suddenly 10 damage. If you can combo a Velen with 2 Mind Blasts, you can do 20 damage in 1 turn. But... okay, that's what the problem with Velen is. He's just too combo reliant. It's kind of like trying to do Divine Spirit plus Inner Fire on some high health minion. You gotta have Velen, you gotta have Mind Blast, and even worse, if you really want to get him to his max potential, you gotta play Velen and hope he lives a turn. Most people won't let Velen live. He is just marked for death the second you play him. So, yeah. He'd be a lot more useful if he were cheaper. Even just 6 mana and drop his stats even to like a 5/5. Then he'd suddenly be super useful because you could get off 2 Mind Blasts in 1 turn, but he's just too high mana cost and he's got to live for a turn to be effective. And he won't. He just won't. So, yeah. He's usually dropped from Priest decks in favor of Ragnaros, who's got a far more immediate effect on the board. Just throwing 8 damage straight out there. So, and without needing to combo with anything else. So yeah, that's Velen. He's not bad, but not great. It's just too... there's no good way to use him. Yeah. Okay. I gotta make sure I didn't miss anything. No, I didn't. Okay, last priest card. Mind Control. Costs 10 mana, take control of an enemy minion. Seems pretty good, right? Your opponent plays Ragnaros, yoink, mine. Your opponent plays Velen, yoink, mine. Well... Mind Control's just too costly. By the time you're playing Mind Control in the game to take a really good minion from your opponent, typically you're already screwed. Like, yeah. Just not useful enough. It's too late in the game to really be all that effective. On top of that, there is another combo that some priest decks can run, which is pretty much a cheaper form of Mind Control. There's a legendary card called... oh, gotta go into crafting mode for this. Where are you? Sylvanas Windrunner. It is a 6-drop 5/5 with a death rattle. Take control of a random enemy minion. Notice the 5 attack. Priest runs Shadowward Death, right? You can use Death on your own Sylvanas. That's a combined cost of 9 mana. And if your opponent has just played a Ragnaros or something like that and is the only legendary on the field, boom, you're guaranteed to take it. 9 mana Mind Control instead. So, yeah. It's just, not that great. On top of that, instead of Mind Control, you could run Basis Manipulator. The 3/3 is never going to really be used. Cost 5 mana, Battlecry, choose a minion and become a copy of it. Your opponent plays Ragnaros, boom, 5 mana, you got your own Ragnaros. Use a death on him. That's an 8 mana Mind Control. So there's just better ways to kind of combo a Mind Control instead of actually using Mind Control. So it's... I can't say Mind Control's a bad priest card, but there's just better ways to accomplish the exact same effect. And for less mana. So, yep. Mind Control not run that often. In case, for whatever reason, you haven't figured it out yet, Priest's hero power is Lesser Heal. Spend 2 mana, restore 2 health to anything. Yes, you can heal your opponent's hero. Some priests will do stuff like that, and then for troll value, yell, "The light shall burn you." Yeah. So, you can heal your opponent's minions too. Some people do that in combo with Northshire Cleric for card draw, if they don't have any damaged minions of their own. So, not a bad hero power. It literally loses in damage to every other hero power out there, but... oh, except mages. Deal 1 damage, heal for 2. 1 up on a mage, that's it. 1 up on a mage. So yep, that's the Priest card review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah. Woo!